and through publishing now to these books and stuff. That's a good one.
Okay. See, I want to first of all tell you that Death Around the Corner, we were talking about this on the way up here. We have a minister sitting here who has read your book. I actually got her to read the book. And everyone, I mean, it just shows the variety of for the spectrum of people who have read the book and have gravitated toward the message. Did you realize when you were writing this book, the 2 years it took you to write the book, that it was going to have the magnitude that it has?
I kind of hope so, but you can't be too sure, especially in the first knowledge. So, the good reviews I've been getting from like Amazon.com, people like yourself and all the people that, on MySpace that hit me up and stuff like that and tell me how crucial the book is, they help me out a lot. And that's the reason I started with my true publishing. That's the reason I'm writing another novel called Street Book.
And just to give you all a little background, and most people know how I met Steve. You all heard our first interview together a few weeks ago with Tori and Ferguson. When I first got this book, I actually gave it away because I get so many books, and you hear so many times about celebrities writing books. I'm like, okay, Seymour, I knew you just only as a rapper. I didn't know, I just really recently got into hip hop, but didn't really know a whole lot about who you were, but I'm like, he didn't really write the book. So I gave it to someone. Because that's the way it happens. So I get an email from one of my friends who also has been publishing, and it said, have you read Seymour's book? And I said, no, I haven't read Seymour's book. I'm reading this, I got this to read. And I said, you really need to read this book. So I said, okay. So I contacted Kendrick and said, I didn't send you another copy. They wouldn't send it. So I had to go to Walmart and buy this. So this is my copy here, the copy I bought. And this book is one of the best books I've ever read in my life. And I've been reading since I was 4 years old. And I think what made me relate so much to this book is that I see so much of myself in it. And a lot of the different characters, and you probably wouldn't expect me to say that with the title, and also with the person who wrote it, just by going by the cover. But there are so many messages in the book. We're going to touch on a few of them. But one thing that I want people to know, the mistakes that I made, that I tell people, like on sale, not to make, and also we have a principal that's here with us from Mississippi. Like I told her, too, to read the book. And her email to me that I read at the event in Mississippi summed it up. She said, you got me to read this book. I didn't think what I was going to be able to get out of this book, but it helps her to relate to her children. And for myself, I could think of so many young people who could be helped by the message of the book. The main character, how many of you read the book? I'm going to put you on the spot for a minute. How many of you read it? Okay. All right. If you haven't, you'll definitely want to get it after today. There is so much in here, in this book. It covers such a short period of time, but there's so much that happens. I'm going to read some scenes today that I have not read before with the book, because we've done different events in Mississippi, and I read some scenes. But there are some that stuck out to me. But I do want I do.
These don't come in.
Okay. Oh, really? Oh, cool. Okay. Okay, cool. All right. Well, one thing I want to say, though, from those who heard that Seymour wrote a book, what would you expect the book to be about? Just out of curiosity. Okay.
Well, I first felt like it should have been also about the streets, because I knew about Seymour's life and how he had to struggle. So as I heard he wrote Death Around the Corner, I first thought there's got to be a portion of the book that's got to be about him, because as a rapper, he writes about true life stories. So as writing the book, it might have some similarities as well.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Anybody else want to share? Anybody? Who's the question? When you first heard he wrote a book, what did you think it was like?
Well, when you introduced it to us at the book club, I said, okay, Death Around the Corner. Is this scary? I thought it was going to be like a horror story or something. I said, well, I don't like horror stories. I don't do horror stories. That's when we had a discussion about, why I should read it. But I thought it was going to be a horror story.
Mm-hmm. Well,
and scary.
And it can be. I think one of the things that intrigued me so much about this book that she put together is that it has so much of everything. You have some romance, You do, of course, have the realness of the streets there, but you also have a supernatural feel to the book. He mentioned to me after I had said to him that it kind of has a Dean Koontz feel. He's like, that's one of my favorite authors, you know. So, I mean, it has all of that wrapped into one, and you get drawn in on so many different levels. Now, I will have to tell you that the way the book ended, it was hard to be sad because we know what the reality of life is. We know what we see so many. I mean, when we left Mississippi, we were already up to, as of today, 5 homicides this year. You know, and we're not talking about 50s and 60s. We're talking about teens up to late 20s, early 30s. So, I mean, this is the realness. This is my neighborhood. It's your neighborhood. It's our world that we live in. And I think he captured it in one person, in Daquan, in a way that nobody else could have done it like he did. Nobody else could have written this story but C. The first thing I want to read, and I think this is one that, well, I'm just going to read it, and you guys can kind of get from yourself. On page number 136,